everyone. I am Violette Ayala, the founder of FemCity, and today you're joining me for our Tuesday chat. I have asked one of our FemCity experts, Dr. Laura, to join us today. And the topic today is going to be navigating metabolism. Dr. Laura is an expert in this field. She is someone who I greatly admire. I follow her on Instagram as well, and she is one of our experts on this topic. And so I'm so happy that she is spending time with us today to share her expertise, her wisdom, and advice for us. Dr. Laura, do you want to share a little bit about yourself for those that don't know you?
Well, thank you for that warm introduction. Topic I love talking about, so I'm really excited for today. For those of you who I don't know yet, I'm Dr. Laura. I am a functional medicine doctor and strategist for busy female entrepreneurs and business owners. And really what I love to do is educate you on how to better understand your brain, your body, and your hormones so that you can make the best possible decisions for your health and your business.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And now we have Dr. Serena joining us. Hey, Dr. Serena.
Hey,
I'm so happy that you're joining us as well. So share a little bit about you too.
Of course. So hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Serena Goldstein, and I'm a naturopathic doctor where, in addition to very much working with hormones, I also address mood, weight, thyroid, stress, and also take the mental, emotional side to really considering everything so we could dive deep into our physical, but then also really expand outwards and get that long-term view of health.
Awesome. Thank you. We have some people that are watching already. So we are live streaming into YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. If you have any questions while the doctors are in the house, please feel free to go ahead and add it on the chat. I'll go ahead and ask on your behalf. And if you're watching the replay, because I know so many of you do watch the replay on the weekends, you can always reach out to two of our FemCity experts on this topic. So, so excited. All right, so let's dive in. I was telling Dr. Laura also in the green room, Dr. Serena, that we are getting more and more requests from our members about this topic and also about menopause as well. So I can see us doing more and more conversations geared around this. But let's go alphabetical order. So we'll go Dr. Laura. The question that I have first is, what's the biggest industry secret when it comes to metabolism and age? I'm going to be 52 years old. I'm a former personal trainer and Pilates instructor. I thought I knew everything about metabolism. I did not. I'm still learning. Every day I learn more and more. So what is that number one secret that you share with your clients when it comes to metabolism, specifically those that get to be around my age?
Sure. I think for me, it's understanding that the things you used to do when you were 20 and 30 and even 40 may not be the same things that you need to do in your 50s and 60s and beyond to really care for your metabolism and to offset the natural effects of aging on your metabolism. So as women, once we go through menopause, we start getting that lower hormone production. It tends to set off this cascade of other events because the body's always talking, right? Things don't happen in isolation, they happen together. So while we may just think of it as, okay, I'm in menopause, no more periods, things are a mess. And you go to your traditional doctor and they tell you, this is just your life now. And you're like, I have this new weight on my stomach and I can't think straight and I'm not sleeping and I don't feel like myself. Well, you're a different person now than you were 20 years ago. So the way we're caring for you has to change. And I think the biggest thing to understand here is instead of just focusing on metabolism as related to your weight, I know that's what we want to focus on. It feels uncomfortable if our weight changes. But if we think about, okay, let's peel back why this is happening. Let's look at the brain aspect of it. Let's look at the body composition aspect of it, because as we start to lose those hormones, our muscle mass often goes along with it. And as women, when we start to gain weight, we have this tendency to try and start eating less and exercising more, thinking that that's going to solve the problem. But that doesn't address the age-related decline in muscle loss and the age-related changes in brain function that come along with it. So actually what I would love to see women who are in their 50s and 60s and beyond really focus on is, how do I actually start really trying to build and maintain my muscle first and foremost? Forget the numbers on the scale, but just focus on that body composition side of things, because we lose it much more quickly than when we were younger. And eating less and exercising more is not going to be the key to that happening. You need to eat to fuel those goals. And it just might look a little different. It might look a little different than it did when you were younger. And that's not a bad thing. It's actually a really cool thing, because you're entering this like second spring, right? You got a whole lot of life left and you got to learn how to like drive the new vehicle that you have now. So things might look different, But I think that's also an internal factor that, okay, let's unlearn that stuff that we were marketed at growing up, where we had to just like diet and exercise all the time, and learn what's actually happening internally so that we can make those better choices and have, especially if we are worried about the weight side of things, let's shift towards this muscle centric notion of making sure we have that, because that's really going to be the key to not just the weight and the body composition, but decreasing your risk of falls, helping with balance, all of these other things that we kind of start to be a little concerned about later in life. So when we think about metabolism, I would much rather have women start thinking about those sorts of things than just, is my metabolism fast or slow? Because it's a little more complicated than that, but we tend to fixate on the things that we're the most uncomfortable about.
I love that you mentioned also like what used to work in the past no longer works. I mean, I'm thinking about myself as I'm listening to you. And in the past, I was doing low fat. I was also like restricting my calories to 1,300, tracking everything. As soon as I could track it on my phone, I would literally track it on my phone. And just as I hit 50, learning more about what you're saying about muscle mass, increasing that muscle mass, and also for myself, reducing sugar, with my glucose patch that I know I talk about all the time. I'm obsessed with it. It's been over a year now that I've been using it, and I love it. That's for me what's working. So what used to work before, no longer, like exactly what you said, no longer works for me. What's working now is just really working on the muscle mass. Still do the cardio and the Pilates and the yoga and all that stuff, but really the muscle mass has been a focus, and also eliminating the sugar. I've seen that I don't have to worry about the calorie intake as much. I mean, I'm not eating like ridiculous amounts of cheese and things like that, but it's definitely helped me to maintain my weight where it was really creeping up as I hit 50 and 51 years old. And I love that you mentioned also the osteoporosis aspect of it. Like when we do build our muscle, it's not just about metabolism, but it's also like the functionality that we have as humans navigating with our physical sense, that we are a little bit more agile versus someone who's not really working on their muscle mass. I mean, my aunt, she's going to be in her 80s. My gosh, she's in amazing shape, and it's because she's working out every single day, or rather, 4 or 5 times a week. So love those tips. All right, Dr. Serena, what are some secrets that you can share with us as well when it comes to metabolism, and for those that are over 50?
Of course. So it's one of my favorite questions, because as we were talking about being very in tune with the body, how the body is always speaking, interestingly, the fat cell itself has at least over 10 different receptors on there. And some of those receptors, think estrogen, progesterone, glucose, inflammatory markers, thyroid. So even the fat cell itself is telling us that, hey, there's no quick fix, there's no magic pill. There actually needs to be work done throughout, looking at all these different other types of endocrine markers. So one of my favorite tips, similar to what Dr. Laura was talking about, similar to what you mentioned, is weight training. I find that the most, oh my God, start somewhere. It's not more cardio. That will likely burn out your adrenals. So what happens with additional cardio is that it's more getting us into that fight or flight, that sympathetic breaking down response. What happens physiologically in the shift to menopause is that where in the pre and even perimenopause, we're doing good, with our estrogen levels, and our face is nice and symmetrical, our weight is evenly distributed, we're still working out pretty well. But what happens is progesterone really tends to drop a bit. Not only does estrogen considerably drop as well, but it actually changes. So it's estradiol that is about 3 times more potent than estrone, which is E1, the main estrogen that takes over post-menopause, because that's the hormone that's mostly produced by the adrenals, where estradiol was produced by the ovaries. So where estrone is not as potent, that's also what we can see leading to more abdominal belly fat. That tends to be the one also that men have. So that's why we can see some of those guts, notwithstanding the potential visceral fat-related issues as well. But it's not only the drop in hormones, but it's the shifting of hormones. And to a degree, it's actually where blood sugar regulation takes slight precedence over hormone regulation in and of itself. So what weight training does is, from the physical side, It helps, yes, metabolism go over the long term, of course, as Dr. Laura mentioned as well, all the mobility aspects. But on the more emotional side, it could also help build our confidence. It helps us knowing that, okay, we're working to some sort of fatigue and actually literally and proverbially allow us to rest. And yes, I also know what it's like to want to reduce the calories while upping the cardio, just hoping maybe we could finally lose the weight over the next few days and everyone will tell us how amazing we look. Just that's a lot of very hurried energy. What also happens post menopause is that the rose colored glasses come off, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, how do I want to feel? Never mind everyone else, but how do I want to feel strong? And I believe weight training can help from both that metabolic, the confidence, the physical side of it. And then, really again, starting to work with someone, even if it's just challenging that mindset of, hey, maybe you're used to lifting 5 pounds, try 7, just lower the reps. It doesn't have to, you don't have to go straight to the hundreds of pounds per se. It's just going little by little, because I actually find that so many women, especially in the 50s, 60s plus, tend to have a lot of fear around that, because so many exercise classes were maybe like between 5 and 7 pound weight gain. It's 5 and 7 pound weights themselves. And oh, look, you could do hundreds of reps. And it's like, that's cardio.
Yeah.
I don't know what benefit you're doing there if you're literally lifting 5 pounds for 10, 20 years straight.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So I just want to highlight some of the things that you said. Yeah. I'm a former cardio junkie. I used to do, before the pandemic, I was not satisfied with just one spin class. I had to do 2 spin classes on the same day, and I had my Peloton. So talking about like cardio junkie, that was totally me. And my adrenals, I think, are shot completely. And so when I was hearing you share that it's not about the cardio so much, but more just focusing on the weight training. That was definitely my story there. Especially, I do have hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's, and so that was great for me to like a confirmation of what I was already doing. I love that you also mentioned the self-esteem. Like, I stopped getting on the scale. It was no longer serving me getting on the scale, because I was putting on weight, because I was increasing my weight training. But just looking in the mirror and being more confident in seeing a more toned body has been the shift that I needed to do, versus like getting on the scale. Because at the end of the day, like, what does it matter? The scale is a couple pounds more. If I'm feeling more confident, I'm feeling more strong, and my body has less appearance of fat, I'm looking more toned. That has been a huge shift for me, versus like trying to get back to like 142 pounds, which is what I was like in my 20s and in my 30s. Now it's like, you know what? If I don't ever do that, it's okay, because I still look good and I look healthy and I feel really good. And focusing on that versus, the other aspect, the focuses that we had prior to maybe hitting in our 40s and our 50s. Love all that. All right. So final advice that you have, Dr. Laura.
Yeah, my final piece of advice is just switching slight gears away from what we've been talking about, and it's to not neglect your brain. There's a lot of brain changes that happen when we age as women. I mentioned it briefly before, but also as women, we have higher risks post-menopause of various forms of dementia, especially compared to men. And a lot of us experience brain-based symptoms that we kind of brush off and stay focused on the appearance symptoms. But anxiety, depression, sleep issues, all of these can increase as we experience those hormonal transitions. So what I would love when you start thinking about self-care is, yes, of course, nutrition and exercise and being with friends and people you love and doing things you enjoy, but also bringing your brain to the forefront. How can I care for my mind, both in terms of my mindset, like Dr. Serena mentioned, but also the physiology of that brain? And so that's when we look at things like, Violet, what you've done with blood sugar and looking at your continuous glucose monitor, because that has a big impact on brain health and brain function. How do we make sure we're getting all the nutrients the brain needs? How are we making sure that we're really prioritizing our sleep and our recovery and all of these other things, after coming from, for many women, decades of bringing up kids and building businesses and like a lot of things that are stressful on the brain. And now we don't have these floods of estrogen and progesterone helping with different cognitive functions the way we did when we had a cycle. So even the way we treat our brain has to change a little bit, especially with that mind of how can I be proactive to increase my health span, meaning that the number of years we spend healthy by, of course, weight training, because we know it has all of those benefits, but also for our brain. How do we make sure we keep our brains healthy, keep the inflammation down, keep the blood sugar regulated, so that we're also decreasing our risk of dementia, of brain fog, of those kind of conditions that can really impact quality of life for us and those around us. So I'm on a mission to make brain health sexy again. So I really want to see people bring that into the discussion a bit more.
I love that. As I think about my Wordle, that I think I have two more chances to get Wordle right today. It's really challenging today, but I've been doing my Wordle and my New York Times crossword every day because I'm I need to keep that mind working in new ways.
Yeah.
Let me see. I think we have a question that came in. Let me just see if it's, just more love. So true. We had a user, a commenter say, all right, Dr. Serena, final advice.
Yes. Listen to your body. This is going to be so important as these changes are taking place, because now that, this is where I find too, wherever we are in our hormone journey and our healing journey, if we find ourselves really leveling up and choosing from that, what we call internal motivation. So this is the motivation that's not based on the external, whether it's the scale or praise or anything outside of us, but what we truly want for ourselves. And then again, as all these shifts are happening internally, it can also prompt us to then go back inwards and say, how do we really want to be healthy and healthful from now to the next few decades? Where could we learn from the past as well? But that listening in will also mean any changes coming into boundaries, into who you surround yourself with. Because you may literally wake up one day and realize you may not like an activity or exercise anymore and want to try something else and get a lot of crap from other people. On the flip side, leave room for a lot of people to also support you as well. So this could also be when you're now deciding to wait, maybe I should really take a closer look at my blood sugar. Maybe I should put in more hormone balancing foods. Maybe instead of always doing, let's say, so much cardio, you want to try the weight training. And what does that crowd look like? What does that vibe look like? So it's really that chance to welcome in changes, while of course always, taking a few minutes wherever you can to say, well, how does it feel internally as well? Because that's that internal guide that's also going to keep guiding you too throughout the decades, as your body does continue to change and of course grow.
I love that. And I was thinking we should probably do a podcast diving in a little bit deeper into more of the foods that we could eat to balance our hormones. I mean, the both of you have mentioned tips that we ran out of time, but I'd love to dive into those a little bit more. So either we do a panel or a podcast, but I think there's just so much more within this conversation to explore and to share. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Laura and Dr. Serena, for joining me today and sharing that awesome advice. And for those that are, again, listening to the replay, and if we repurpose this over on our podcast, you can always reach out to us for more questions if you have, or if you want us to cover specific details in a little bit more, elaborating a little bit more, let us know as well. We want to make sure that we always give you everything that you need in order to create a beautiful and happy life while growing your business and your career. Thank you so much. And we will see you guys back here next week.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.